Hello and welcome back to Ground Level Theology. Dave, welcome back.
I'm glad to be welcomed back.
Folks, we have an awesome episode today. Today we're going to be talking about youth ministry, and I'm sure you're wondering who this man beside me is. And this man is a youth ministry guy. He's sort of a youth ministry extraordinaire, if you'll allow me to say that. This is Ben Isaak. He's been in youth ministry for about 20 years, and he's been a youth pastor of Calvary Chapel Monrovia for about 1 year. And you guys might be thinking, 20 years youth ministry, 1 year as a youth pastor. What's the story there? Well, folks, we have a special episode that's going to be posted with this episode as well, and we'll dive into his story. So stay tuned for that. But this episode is going to be just about youth ministry. So welcome to the podcast, Ben.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks,
Well,
Dave.
Hi.
let's go ahead and just get right into this. Now, normally our podcasts begin with kind of defining the terms. We like to define and set a solid foundation, but we all know what youth ministry is, you know? I guess a better question would be, what's sort of the age range with youth ministry?
Yeah, well, youth ministry has, kind of changed a lot over the years, and just, I mean, when I was growing up, we didn't really have a lot of the technology and some of the things that are prevalent today, and the kids these days are just, I mean, honestly, they're growing up at super speed. Things that I dealt with when I was much older, it's just not like at all the same speed, and so. Realistically, when I was in youth ministry before, I kind of look at it as a mentality rate, not like how they are mentally, rather than like what grade they're in.
Hmm.
And it kind of helps to kind of see people where they're at mentally and spiritually, rather than like, hey, how old are you? And so for me, I really think that youth ministry begins at about the sixth grade, because that's about whenever all the hormones are
Hmm.
typically starting to kick in.
Yeah.
Oh, we
A
love
lot.
those.
Yeah, so you kind of have a different set of problems than, like some of the, like, hey, listen, like let's color the page together, like we have a different set of issues and a different set of problems that we're dealing with, and
Hmm.
so if we have kids that are, just too advanced for one reason or another, they have it's time for them to move on. So I find about sixth grade typically begins youth ministry, and it ends right around 12th grade. Some college kids that, of course, love to hang around with youth kids. They like to stay a little bit longer. But but yeah, I would
We're
say
not going
like
to
it.
name names.
Yeah, we're not gonna name names. I'm not gonna say, oh, Mike. Just kidding.
Good
Yeah.
kid at heart,
Hey,
you know?
listen, man, it's cool. It's cool. It's all right. It's all right. God loves you. It's fine. Um, yes, but I would say, 12th grade is typically when it should end. But I would say that's kind of our youth ministry age range.
Okay, yeah. I can see that with like I guess the seventh grade is sort of more off of the old line of like back when it was seventh through 12th, I believe, or something like
Right,
that.
yeah, yeah, and that's how our church has the youth ministry set up now, is seventh through 12th grade.
Hmm.
But we have our ministry split into two platforms: junior high ministry, which is 7, 8, and then the high school, which is 9 through 12.
Hmm.
But it's we're kind of using we're on the old slab, if you will. We're in the old building, and so yeah, we're just running with it.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, you've been in youth ministry for 20 years.
Yeah.
That's quite the number, you know. That's about two-thirds of my life.
Hey.
How
Hey.
how'd you get started?
Oh man, youth ministry getting started. It was really weird because so I was one of those people that couldn't get kicked out of youth ministry. So
So you were one of those guys who just hanging
Just
around.
yeah,
kept lingering.
I'm taking jabs at myself, right? So here's what happened. So a lot of my friends and I just, we loved hanging out, and then our junior high pastor was really cool. He was a big influence in our lives and said, "Hey, listen, why don't you guys, come and, I don't know, just come and help out where you can, do what you can. I don't know, just come over. And so we were like, oh, okay. And all my friends had really good skills, they could do things. They could, they had
You can climb
really
a salmon ladder.
they could climb a salmon ladder, for instance. They could also, like a lot of them, like they knew media and stuff like that. I was a
Oh,
knucklehead, and so so I said, hey, listen, I can kind of come in and like stack a couple chairs, pick up some trash, and so I started doing that, and picked up a few little pieces of trash, Starburst wrappers and all that stuff. And I started doing that, and then somebody didn't show up for the sound booth. Oh, okay, all right, cool, I got you. And then and then one of our worship leaders, our interns, just started like, hey, I'm not available to play, and so I was like, well, I got a guitar. All right, we'll
God.
figure it out, and then small groups, and then, hey, lead a small group, and then now, hey, can you start teaching for me once every 3 months? I said, I need a break. Uh,
My gosh. The
And
ministry
you really got
chameleon.
thrown into the deep end.
yeah, yeah. It was like
Wow.
it was like, here you go. Here's a book that will not help you. Yeah,
That's right. Yeah, because you didn't have the opportunity to like Google or
no
anything at the
such
time.
thing.
It was literally just learn on the fly.
That's right.
The
Exactly.
flannel
Yeah.
graph.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah, so yeah, it was literally like I was kind of working towards like figuring stuff out, a lot of trial and error.
Hmm.
And I mean, honestly, like I didn't prepare to be in youth ministry. Like it was just something I just wanted to help my church.
Hmm.
Like there was a lot of needs, and I just wanted to help. And so it was like, hey, just help out, give a little here, a little there, and stuff like that. And when I was younger, of course, you don't have a lot of money, and so how do you give an offering when you don't have a lot of money? You serve the church. And
Yeah.
so
there you
that's what, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
All right. So you kind of just that sounds like a pretty seamless transition of you just kind of poked your head in and then
yeah.
essentially
go.
you
Stayed.
got thrown into everything else.
Yeah.
Oh, I got stuck. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. The pizza got me. I mean, I don't know what else to say,
Yeah.
guys. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That's so funny.
Gets us all.
Well, all right. So with that wisdom, can you tell us one thing about the youth that will, or youth ministry, I should say, that will kind of make or break you?
Yeah. Oh, I would say, just being real, like
Hmm.
being real, having a real conversation with them. A lot of times, it's just so easy for us to kind of like, I don't want to say like fake something or fake knowledge or whatever, but I think the older that we get, the more that we want to try to like relate and try to do all these things. And so we kind of start to step into areas where we say, oh yeah, I've heard of that band, or I know that app you're talking about, or I know that video game, or I know the style or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So,
Gosh.
but we're so tempted just to kind of jump into things that were not necessarily something we should be, jumping into,
Hmm.
like, because we don't really know anything about them, right? And what happens is whenever we try to do that, we just lose an immense amount of credibility. We lose all of our cred, and what happens is too when we start to do things that we're not really knowledgeable about it, we really lose our, sincerity because it comes off as cheesy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then and if you have when you finally have like a discussion group or a small group or a sermon, it's like, well, how am I know that you're like being real now? It's
Right.
like good. Like I saw you pretending earlier, like and now you're not pretending, or they see you being so authentic in your sermons, and then when you talk to them, or someone's like and now we just flip the switch. It's like try to be the
So
same person. Be the same person. Be
Right.
yourself.
the key is to take the chair and turn it around and
Mm.
sit on it backwards and then
Ah.
turn the cap
Ah.
backwards,
Hmm.
and then say things like no cap.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, like use language that you're not supposed to use, like
Hmm.
It's so funny. We know a guy who like
Yeah.
the youth really tore into him because he was using
oh,
that kind of language
yeah.
like that's one of the things that people don't realize. The youth are so in tune with like whether you're being genuine or not. Like they can see it.
Yeah. Yeah, they can tell real quick, they have that filter that, a lot of people you think have, but they really have it. Is as soon as they
Mm-hmm.
feel like you're not, you have bad intentions, like they already know. They're like, okay, well, why are you trying to talk to me like this? What do you want from me? Because
Yeah.
the reality is like when people start talking to people like that, it means they're trying to sell them something.
Hmm.
They're trying to sell them this idea or sell them this or like convince them to do something that they shouldn't really do. And I feel like that's
Yeah.
one of the biggest problems that a lot of people do face in youth ministry is just being sincere, because you don't need to know. You don't need to know about the latest video game. You don't need to know about the latest band. Um, the best thing to do is, with youth ministry specifically, is ask questions.
Man.
Yeah, we don't need to be an
Yeah.
expert on Fortnite, or we don't need to be an expert on TikTok. But what we should be doing is, asking questions, and asking questions does build a lot of sincerity and good faith. Because, when you say, oh, I don't really know this or I don't know that, you can start to, there's two roads you can go down with the youth. You can try to learn a little bit more about it, or you can just start to talk to them and ask them questions because, that is a thing.
Hmm.
Asking questions really does help relationships.
Yeah, because you
Yeah.
don't actually need to know.
No,
You just need to be able to ask the question so that they can essentially teach you.
right.
Yeah.
Oh
Absolutely.
man. Well, I also have like as a senior pastor, I have a uh, predominantly older congregation right now. I think the median age is about 66, 67. All right. And now, and we don't even, interestingly, we don't have a youth program right
Hmm.
now because we don't have youth. The next oldest couple to me and my wife is like they could be my parents. And, the next youngest is my kids of the nursery. And so, like, they're like, as far as youth goes, but a lot of my members do have grandkids.
Mm.
And and there's so much of like, oh, like I couldn't talk to them about that. I have no idea what they're talking about. I have no idea what they're talking about. And I'm kind of like, I'm like, actually, that sounds perfect. You have no idea, and they do. So talk to them. Ask them how to figure it out.
Yeah.
Ask them. So okay, I don't really know what TikTok is, but I know you're really into it, and I'm really into you. So can you explain it to me? And just trying to have that common ground.
Yeah.
That's actually like where ministry actually happens, not being fake, not pretending like you know it, or hey, like, yeah, what are all the kids saying on the streets today, bro? Like, hey, all you hip young kids. I just think of like the Steve Buscemi
Oh
meme
I
yeah.
with
feel
his
like that's gonna get
skateboard.
clipped right now. He's
It
like,
is
all you
like,
hip young kids.
yeah, exactly. Hey, let's shake and bacon. Yeah, but
Yeah.
like as opposed to just like I have no idea. Um, I
Yeah.
don't. I'm not even gonna pretend.
Right.
But you do, and like yeah, and that that could probably go to with sports, art,
Yeah.
drama, you name it, right? Food.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, yeah, with kids and stuff, the best thing to do is like if you don't know it, don't know it. It's fine. Just own it. Be like, oh, hey, listen, because I don't really watch basketball, right? We have a couple kids who really love basketball. I don't know anything about basketball. And so I just
Got a
go,
touchdown.
hey, listen, it's cool. Like, right on, man. Like, it's good. Like, how often do you practice, Because I don't know anything. Like, how much time do you spend in the gym? How long you've been playing for? And so, once you start going down this road of showing a genuine interest in people, the tone changes.
Mm.
The temperature in the room changes because you're showing true, genuine, heartfelt care, and for teenagers specifically, you're building credibility like crazy.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. And like you
Building
want
that
to
cred.
know. Like you like
Yes.
it's like you can tell when you're being like interrogated, like I'm trying to find out something. As opposed to like, dude, like I just don't like I'm trying to find out, but like I'm listening. Like I care about the answer. And like who is this adult that's like wants to know what I'm doing later? No one asks,
Right.
no adults would care about what you know what I'm
And it's
doing.
funny too, because it's like, well, for one thing, they're so good at being able to cut through the fakeness. Because
Hmm.
in one sense, they're trained that way. It's like every year when they're at school, they have to figure out which professors or which teachers they like and which ones they don't. And there's always the teacher that's like, I'm gonna try and bribe you. I'm gonna try and be cool. I'm gonna be the cool teacher for you, and it's like they see that. They're so
Yeah.
trained with that they can absolutely just cut through the mask and see the facade. And so it's almost like don't even try it. It's not gonna work. It's gonna hurt your cause. Just be who you are and be interested.
Hmm.
Well, because what
Yeah.
if they fall in love with that, right? Almost. What if they
Yeah, that's
fall
true.
like? Well, now they don't really. They don't. They don't like me. They like the fake me. And if you
Right.
expect, your youth group kids, if you expect those young adults, those individuals, to think differently, to where you want them to be themselves, not be people pleasers, not just put on a facade, then I don't want to be up there like hungry, hungry hypocrite, as Mike always
Yeah.
says. And just be like, hey, don't do that, but watch me do it.
Right.
You know?
Well, there's a really famous saying where it's like, hey, listen, at a certain point, if you can't maintain it, you shouldn't. In ministry specifically, like
Yeah.
yeah, you shouldn't do it. Like, and so, if you're constantly dragging yourself, like I always like, me and Mike have been friends for a moment, and I was telling him, I'm like, listen, man, like the my philosophy for ministry is if it's not fun, don't do it, like at all, like
Yeah,
don't do
that's how
it,
you know
like
you're loved. Yeah.
yeah,
No, like that
yeah,
that was one of my ministry guys too, like youth ministry.
yeah.
Like, David, how do these kids know that you love them? Capital F, capital U, capital N.
Right.
They know you love them because you like to have fun.
Right.
I was like, okay.
Exactly. Exactly. And then, it's funny too, because the kids know that you can shift gears, and so
Yeah.
it's like it's really awesome just to kind of be in that moment and be in that room. And so when you have that like genuine like love for each other, it's amazing. Like one of the things that I've done interesting, unique for our group specifically is like, dude, we like for cell phones and stuff, like we don't have them out during service. I know.
All right.
Where do they
All
go?
right.
I know.
They
How'd you
turn off?
achieve that? Hold on. We
How
need to
did
pick
that
this apart
happen?
right now.
Wow.
Secret
Yeah.
sauce.
Secret sauce. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, so because I was like, I always explain to them, like, hey, listen, if I took you out to a dinner and we were having a good conversation, and then all of a sudden I just started getting my phone out and texting everybody I know, and you're sitting in front of me and you're trying to have a conversation with me, what does that say?
Yeah.
And so I say, hey, for the people that are inside the room, and then also like, like the people that are sitting directly in front of you and the people that are having a conversation with you, what does that say? And so I said, like, listen, these people in the room are here to talk to you. And whenever I'm preaching or, dispensing the word of God, it's like God is trying to speak to you, so put the phone away just for a little bit. I'm asking for 20, 30 minutes. Actually, we're Calvary Chapel, so maybe like 40,
Yeah.
45,
Yeah.
like, hey,
Yes.
put away your phone, in your pocket and it'll be fine. And, everybody's engaged in the conversation, like, I mean, I know it's a sermon and so like, it's like one way, but like, hey, listen, this is an engaging point. Bring a notebook, write down questions, highlight verses, underline stuff, because you're not going to have your phone with you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wonderful.
Well, with the
Truly wonderful.
phone, I mean, the phone is like there's so much going on with the phone. There's just like they could be on TikTok, they could be on Facebook, which they're not. They could be on Instagram, surfing YouTube, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
There's so much going on, and even then, like the landscape of what's on the phone and what they're engaged in has changed so much. Dave, I know you and I we sort of had the MySpace Facebook thing, It was
Yeah.
like we were sort of in that era, and
Yeah.
that
With
that sort
dial-up.
of dates us pretty far back.
You've got
Yeah.
mail.
I did. We were
But
born in the late 19th century, Mike.
oh
Which they
man, I
got
feel
that
old
wrong because
now.
I thought it was the 20th century. But they
Oh.
said, I saw the 19. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow.
Um, it's true. Like what we grew up with is such a far shot from what they're growing up with, and the
Oh, yeah.
landscape's just always changing. It's always evolving. Culture. Back in when we were around, it was like you got your 15 minutes of fame, but now it's like with TikTok and all of this stuff and how much it's changing now. It's like you have maybe your 5 seconds of fame.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
What? 60 seconds max, right? For a post,
yeah, it's
even.
just
Like, sound
culture.
bit.
that culture's changing so much. Like, do we're trying to build that bridge with the kid. We're trying to relate to them. How much should we be jumping into that world, or should we even be jumping into that world? Like how do we do that so that we can relate to them more?
Well, so I mean, just real quick, just you said something interesting. It was
Mm.
like, about like, hey, we have 60 seconds, and when I first started in ministry, like it was 60 seconds. And then it
Mm.
turned into 30 seconds like about 10 years ago, and now it's about 3 seconds. You have like
Wow.
3 seconds. You got 3 seconds. And so it's really important in that first like little clip of with these kids that you really have to nail. But as far as, kind of getting our kids on, you said social media, right?
Yeah.
Like how do we relate with them? So there's a few things you can do. Specifically, I always say like, kind of watch the majors. With youth, they're always talking about movies. I mean, movies is kind of always going to be something that we're always going to pay attention to, just because it's like embedded in our culture,
Yeah, that's
And
true.
Mm-hmm.
and so whenever there's a new superhero movie coming out, you're like, oh, hey, this is pretty good, or is it pretty bad, And you don't have to know superhero movies at all. Like all you have to do is kind of have an idea, but it's very specific towards the group that are in front of you. So when I first started ministry, I dealt with a lot of skateboard kids, and so skateboard kids, I would always watch like, hey, who's dropping a video this week? Is it Bam?
Mm.
Is it going to be Tony Hawk? Who's it going
The
to be
X
that's dropping?
Games.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
The
Or
Do
did
Tour.
did you see Tony Hawk hit the 900, bro? It was
Yeah,
sweet.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And so, for depending on who's in the room, you have to modify the things that you're paying attention to based on who's in the room. So if you have kids that are really into, sports, you should try your best just to kind of get a handle on it.
Download
Like
ESPN.
yeah, ESPN. I mean, one of my secret things that I've done over the years, I told Mike this. This is crazy. So like, I can't really keep up with football. There's too much going on, right? And so what I learned was over time, football and baseball is they have like fantasy sports. I don't
Yeah.
play for money, but what I do is it helps me keep up with like, hey, who's actually doing well? Like I don't know how the teams are doing, but I know players, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't, and so like
Oh, Pat Mahomes. Yeah,
yeah,
so
who's
good.
this kid? Like anyway.
Yeah.
But what it does is it creates a conversation point so you can kind of not know anything about like a team that's not within our region. So I can go, we're in California, so I can look at a team, like in Jacksonville, and I can say, oh yeah, man, you're gonna want to make sure you get this running back from Jacksonville, right? Even though I know nothing about Jacksonville, right? But but if they're
Never
real
been to
fans, they're paying
Florida.
attention. They're watching the whole
Yeah.
team, and I'm like, oh, because I'm stat watching.
Yeah.
Oh
And
man,
and
he's really
It's
into
sort
it.
of a cheat code.
it's for sure a little
Right
bit, yeah.
on.
Yeah, and so I've kind of like gotten to the point where I'm like, oh, well, so I'll watch the majors. It's kind of like, if people are standing outside of a pool and somebody jumps in, you're bound to get splashed. So like if the kids that are, like even not intentionally paying attention, if they get splashed, it's like, okay, cool. Right on. I heard about that.
Mm.
And so you got a
Right.
little talking point. You don't have to be an expert. Then that's like the other thing. You just have to have talking points, like little pieces. Like what's going on in culture. Like right now, I can really talk about how Disney is really making bad movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, there
So
you
it's not
go.
like,
And
oh, how was the school dance? Like, are you kidding me? Like
exactly.
what?
Because they like honestly, a lot of them don't
Like
even
they were
want to
sharing.
go to it. They're like, I don't really
Right.
want to go.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah. With my youth pastor. Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
Like,
it's
come on,
awkward. Like
man.
if it's awkward for you to ask the question, it's awkward
Yeah,
for them to answer it. And now
for sure.
sometimes like you gotta ask,
Mm.
sometimes it's
Yeah,
fun to make it awkward because it's like
right,
this we need to talk about this. Culture has made it awkward. This is a biblical thing or something. And I
right,
understand that. But
right.
usually 9 times out of 10, have a be a social person, use social skills. Okay, read body language. All right. If it make you feel uncomfortable, it probably will make them feel uncomfortable too.
Exactly. When did your voice stop squeaking? But,
Yeah, exactly.
That's so funny. Yeah, well, I guess it's good to know that too, because it's like, okay, you don't have to be involved in like all the little things, know who their favorite artist is, and
right.
and what the latest phrase is. You just sort of you got to relate at the big points,
Right.
and those are a lot easier to keep track of.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, music is always going to be tough, and like for anybody that's trying to keep up with that, that's just a like a lost cause. I mean,
That's
it's so hard and so fast, especially the Christian music scene. It's just rough to try to keep up with it on top of the cultural music scene, and so it's just difficult. It's like,
Yeah.
I just remember, my old youth leaders back in the day, saying, "Hey, if you like this, you should watch this," and and then I remember trying to do the same thing, which, that's just not my gift. I love music, but I can't keep up with it, you know. It's like, hey, you like Britney
Yeah.
Spears? You should listen to, Barlow Girl or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's a
gosh,
great match.
it's
Yeah.
so true.
It's
Do you
just
like
really
Rage
hard
Against
to
the Machine? This is POD.
Ah, yeah, that's a good
that,
one. That's a good
that
one.
is
Yeah.
funny because like that's how I came across Skillet was like,
Yeah.
they sound just like Papa Roach, and I
Uh,
love them, but their sound differs from like album to album, even song to song. But it is funny that we kind of do that of like, what's the Christian version of the music I like to listen to right now?
yeah.
Yeah. They're like Iron Maiden, but for the Lord. You know? Awesome.
Yeah.
You like Blink 182? Oh, Reliant Case for you then.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, no, no, 1,000 Foot Crutch. Don't forget about
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
Hawk Nelson.
Oh,
Hawk Nelson.
oh,
Sorry,
that one
all my
just
references
listen.
are super old, so I mean,
Oh, you like
because I stopped
Incubus?
keeping up.
Listen to Switchfoot.
Oh
Like it's
yeah,
just all these
for
bands.
sure.
Look,
Yeah, well, I
we
mean
literally
that
just
just
did it.
yeah,
We
that
just
just
did
sort of
it.
underscores like how difficult it is to try and keep up with the music.
Yeah.
It's like don't try and do that. Hit the spots that are a lot easier to hit. Hit the big targets. Movies are definitely one of them.
Yeah.
Just like I remember, there was I think a Spider-Man movie that came out, and you were like, Mike, we got to go watch this weekend because the kids will have watched it this weekend, and we got to be able to have those conversations with them. It's
Hmm.
like, so yeah, movies are a big one, and you don't really have to, I guess, be so entrenched in their world as much as just hit hit the high spots that will allow you to build those bridges to them.
Yeah, because it's important because they do talk about some things and you're able to kind of correct stuff along the way.
Hmm.
It's really important just to kind of like be able to touch on that, especially like, if you're ever teaching a certain book of the Bible or a passage, you can kind of go, oh, hey, listen, there's a lot of parallels with this story with, the story of Joseph, right? So you can kind of like combine those two together, you know.
Mm.
And so you can kind of make cross those patterns and like kind of have the Bible get into their cultural
Oh
knowledge,
yeah, that's right.
little
Help
crossover.
with the sermon illustrations too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Now, I cannot let you leave the podcast or get anywhere past where we're at now. There is a secret that you have. Now, folks, he won't say this, he won't tell you himself, but he's spoken at a conference. He's been asked by multiple people, what is he doing right? And I know that there is a secret that you have to success in youth ministry. And I just want you to bear it out for us now. So we have it on the record so we could take it and just mass produce it to everyone. But what is the secret to youth ministry?
Oh wow. I mean, really, there's not like a secret. It's just being genuine and being real.
Hmm.
A lot of these kids are coming and honestly, there's a lot of like I don't want to call it fake relationships, but a lot of screen relationships. We have a bunch of kids that are, struggling. They're just like, oh hey, listen, they're just kind of on their phone. It's like, hey, listen, go be quiet in the corner. And so when you start
Hmm.
to show them, kind of a different way of life, the way of life that we as Christians kind of know, this life of community that we should be living in. When you start to show
Mm.
them this way that we live, it just changes who they are and how they're coming together and how they're getting to know people, and how things are supposed to be, where if somebody is struggling inside the community, we don't post it and make a funny react video. We try to help them out. We pick
Yeah.
them up off the floor and we say, hey, this is how it is, or a place where they can come and be heard. You know, it's just one of those pieces. What we try to do is just build community, and it comes really just from the culture and the air inside of the room, of how can we help these people kind of come along,
Well,
and
because
Yeah.
yeah, well, because when you think about like, we don't want to be fake. We want to be authentic, and like social media is like you got to post the best of the best. Like, look at my perfect meal with the perfect sunset with the
mm,
perfect caption, and it's like no, no. I'm like no, 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 no. Like, welcome to Calvary Chapel Monrovia, where I want to know what you're really like. like
yes,
no, 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 no. Like what do you actually like? Like,
yeah,
who
like
are you like? I want to eat the M&Ms in my PJs while rewatching The Office
right,
forever. Like, I want to know the
exactly.
real you.
Right, exactly. And I mean, that's really like really what it boils down to. It's just so easy just to kind of, with the teenagers, they get stereotyped so quickly, right?
Oh yeah,
And so it's so easy for them just to kind of just go, oh, all right, cool, you want to think that? That's fine, I don't care, and
yeah,
so what
Yeah, they'll shut down.
they'll shut down. And
yep.
so for us, like what I found is like this culture and this community that we have, that we try to build out of the book of Acts, like Acts 2, where it's like, they gather together, they eat together, they worship, and they
Man,
like learn the word, right? So like
yeah. What's not to
when
love? Like,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And I think that, whenever, it's being done in the right way, you start to see just the Holy Spirit just take over the space. And that's what we've seen, is just the Holy Spirit just do his thing. Like, we're just being faithful with what we're called to, not to,
man.
like, try to, do something, be somebody and do something that we're not. We're trying to be real genuine, and, hey, listen, this is a real place. This is real people, this is the real gospel. Like, and, it's a place where, it's like for lack of a better term, this is a safe place.
Yeah. Well, like,
You can come here and ask those hard questions, because,
man.
well, one thing that I was listening to a podcast with some youth ministry people that were really like, really, like they keep track of things. I think they're out of Fuller,
Hmm.
and they were talking about the rates of Christianity, especially in youth,
Mm,
is like, if they don't feel like they can ask a hard question, that they're not going to make it back to church.
Hmm.
Like, independently, they're just not going to make it.
mm,
And so what we try to do is create that space for them
yeah.
where,
This
hey,
is the best place to ask. Like,
yes, exactly. I'm
yeah,
like, please nail me, hurt me, like, throw me your
yeah.
best
We have
shot
a
right
whole
now.
board.
Yeah,
Yeah,
hit
Yeah.
like
me,
write it
hit me.
down.
Like, I'm gonna ask me your question in front of everyone, please,
Yeah,
because
ask the pastor. Yeah,
yeah,
man.
get me. It's like the dunking tank, right? Oh, please don't
Yeah.
ask about Revelation. Just kidding.
Yeah, I'll give you a hard answer.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
We'll start talking about eschatology and,
Yeah.
and you break
that's
out the big words.
eschatology.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, we got all
Yeah.
seven
What
horns here.
is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm, gosh.
Yeah, I remember like one of the things that I remember that you said one time and it really stuck with me was you were like, Mike, you know, the the spot, the place where ministry happens most is not the sermon.
Hmm.
It's what it's what happens within the 15 minutes after the sermon.
Right.
Do you want to talk more about that, man?
Sure. Yeah. So our ministry is, like, for church. I mean, we spend so much time working on messages and things of that nature. And a lot of the times, the kids really need a certain, they need a moment, they need a moment, they need to be able to ask that question. And so what I've learned over the years is that, the 15 minutes before service starts and the 15 minutes after service ends are just so important for them, just to feel the love, like, if it's kind of like, if you see them, you want to say hi to them, right? And
Mhm.
so in youth ministry, I mean, we're following senior pastors like you guys, right? And so what I'm trying to do is clock watch, be like, okay, well, I think the message is gonna end, a quarter after. All right, cool. So that means I need to end 5 minutes early, so I have 10 minutes because we have the sprinters that leave church,
Yep. Yep.
Right.
and so like, okay, how can we do that? And so, we have to be intentional with our moments, because the worst thing that can happen is, like we a kid comes to church and they don't feel like they've talked to anybody,
Yeah,
and
that's true.
Mm.
and so for our leaders and stuff, it's so important for them to know that they have somebody that loves and cares for them and wants to connect with them and just
You're
like, hey,
noticed. Yeah.
yeah,
Like.
exactly, dude. I know you're not here. Like, hey, listen, man. Like,
Mm.
like I know that you like this. Like, I wanted to come and talk to you about it.
Yeah, it's that
Yeah.
intentional relationship that you
Yeah.
build with them that
Man.
goes outside of the sermon. It's like you develop the relationship with them. You're trying to do that the 15 minutes after the sermon, but it even leaves the church, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. I even have like a personal example. Like,
Yeah.
it's interesting. Like when you think of like this, like now you think like the service. Oh, the service isn't like 6 to 7:30, 6:30 to. It's quarter to. It's 15 minutes before, and I got 15 minutes after too, because that's when I'm really gonna press in. To the point, even like when I visited for Mike's ordination, like we were just downtown Monrovia after a movie, and like we ran into Apollo, and it's
Yeah.
just like,
Oh
and like
yeah.
when you even when you see people, like it really takes on where it's like, yo, we're not even at church. And it's like, yo, Mike, what's up? And like when
Yeah.
you can run into it, like you want to have like I had that even with some of my youth group kids, where like I decided to go to Buffalo Wild Wings on Friday night. They went there after Friday Night Lights at the you know after high school football game got done, and it's like, yo, Pastor Dave, you're here. Like I was like, I
Yeah.
was just eating dinner, but they see me, and then like they got their buddies from their team, like, oh, yo, guys, this is my youth pastor. This is Dave. And I'm like, what's up? I've never met you, but you're friends with Morgan. I'm friends with Morgan, so what's up? you
Yeah.
know? And they're like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, eating wings. What are you doing here? And they're like, we want to eat wings. And I was like, cool. Like, and I look at Amber and go, can we pull over our table or do we need to go? And then it's
Yeah.
always like, we got like 30 more minutes. Yeah, like bring up a table, tell the people
Yeah.
that you want to sit with us. Which is like, you don't get that though, right? When you're
Right.
just like, okay, I played the sermon recording, I had or the song recording, I had the icebreaker, we had the game. Sort of like, it's like, man, like when did you talk like to them, not like talk at them,
Right.
like talk with them.
Absolutely. Well, you could also like catch in some of the like other things that are missing too of like, hey, so like, hey, how did this like hit for you?
Like, did
Like
it hit? Like,
yeah,
yeah, exactly.
did this like make any sense to you? Like I
Oh,
used a 1912 reference from a movie. You've never seen the movie, but just kidding.
honestly.
But like, hey, did this make sense to you when I explained it to you this way? And as far as even just preaching wise, they give such valuable feedback
Hmm.
because you're
Oh, yeah.
trying to like learn how to speak to them in a specific way.
Yeah. Yeah, and you have to like try and develop that to where you're reaching them the most.
Right.
Because you have a specific style that's different
Yeah.
from mine, and yours is catered towards the youth.
Right.
Now we're gonna go
Which
into
is
that in
good.
the other
Yeah, as it
episode.
should
So
be. But
You
like,
know, what are you talking about, professor level?
you know, gra- Ben's more ground level. You know what I'm
that's
saying?
so funny. I mean, in some sense, he is.
I'm
Boots
on the
on the ground.
floorboard. I'm just
He's
kidding.
he's
On
the
the
new.
floorboard.
Yeah, just go below the ground. Is that possible? I mean,
That's so.
Yeah.
He's the new host.
The ground.
Yeah, it's so funny because like the stereotype with youth ministry is the 18, 19, 20-year-old kid, all he does is order pizza and hang out with kids,
yeah.
and that's it. Like that's what people think of with youth ministry. But what people don't really realize is with youth ministry, you're a youth pastor.
Mm,
there's so much that goes into youth ministry that like is central to that word pastor.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, youth ministry is definitely unique because I mean, our ministry does focus around the student and themselves, but what a lot of people don't notice, like good youth ministry workers, what they work on is they work on the parents and then the kids underneath them too. Because it's just it's a family ministry, and so um, whenever we start to do things that are in youth ministry as a pastor, it's geared towards really it should be geared towards the family. The family is really the unit of the church, and that's what really um, prepares and makes everything move further along.
Mm,
I really like buy into that whole idea of Deuteronomy 6, right?
mm,
Where it's talking about, the family inside the ministry, but also the church community coming together to support the family. And so that's what we try to do. We try to, work together to create Christians for the next generation, you know?
yeah. Yeah, I mean it's people don't realize how much pastoral service there really is in
Yeah.
there. It's like as you said, it's like you're gonna the intentionality behind having those conversations after your sermon, and then even as I've seen you do, you're going out there and you're talking to the parents as
Yeah.
well. You're having the conversation with the parents. How are they doing? How can you support them? How can you continue to you know um, kind of facilitate the learning of the kid too?
Yeah, well, I mean, just the youth ministry. A lot of the parents just like this sounds really weird, but like I feel like a lot of parents haven't really been trained up in like how to
Mm,
raise a child in the way of a Christian. Because if they've come to the Lord, and they didn't grow up Christian, they're just not going to know. And so there's a lot of assumed things, and so I find that I'm equipping parents in order to be disciple makers of their own kids. Like, okay, hey, listen, this is, depending on their age grade, so like if they're in, the lower grades, seventh grade, eighth grade, hey, pick up a devotion book and walk them through it, throw it in the family chat, hey, what do you think about this verse? What do you think about that story in the devotional book? And
mm,
I'm not a huge fan of those things, but that's a starting point.
yeah.
And then when they get older, you say, hey, listen, for our ministry, what we're doing is we're trying to have the kids read the whole Old Testament by the time they graduate high school. And because on Sunday mornings we're going through the New Testament. And so what we do is we say, hey, listen, we talk to the parents and say, hey, if you want to team up and work together, your kid's going to be reading, Joshua 1 through 10 this week. They're reading 2 chapters a day, the days that they're not at church. So on Sundays and midweek, they're not reading 2 chapters, but read along with them. You have a great conversation point. You can speak to them, be like, hey, what did you actually read? Wasn't that crazy, all the genealogy? Like, why do you think that's in there? And have them ask good questions,
Yeah.
and so
Mm.
it stokes the fire. And then also, the parents too, like they might have questions, and a lot of times maybe they're intimidated to speak to the senior pastor of a church. But hey, I'm just the youth guy. All right, come on over. And so I can kind of talk to them and help them a little bit, here
Uh,
and there, and if and with questions and things like that, it helps just build that relationship,
mm.
and with the parents too, the spiritual relationship, it helps build everything. It works in tandem, man. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, and that's like I don't know about you, like as a senior pastor, like I could talk to individuals and stuff too, but like I know when I was doing youth ministry, like I was the like, hey, how are our youth doing? How are their parents? Like to the senior pastor and the elders, where it's like, hey, they might, yeah, not like there's no confidential or anything, but like, yeah, they might just share something with you that they'd be like, if Pastor so and so knew, they probably, they would think I'm so silly or something. And I'm like,
Yeah.
don't worry, we all think you're silly. No, but it's like no, but you know what I mean. Like and as a senior pastor now, like I can get a read on things that if I was left to my own devices, I might not otherwise know. But because I have, hey, well, you're involved with the missions. What are our missionaries? What do they want us to be praying for? So I can take it to the elders. Hey, you're getting involved, this is the women. What's going on in the lives of our women? You know what I mean? And so as a youth pastor, it's like, hey, like I hope you're asked, like, how are our kids doing? Or they're like, ah,
Yeah.
Ben's got it. No, but you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I would come to you and be like, how are our kids doing? How are their parents? How can we help these families if they need any? Or how can we help you help them? Whatever it is.
Right. Yeah, and I mean that's such a huge thing too, is like when you have buy-in from just not just the youth ministry, because sometimes people like look at youth ministry as like in a silo, like it's by itself, but it's really not. It's like
That's
it's
the
part
youth room.
that
Like
is the
way
youth
over there.
space over there. They smell. Um, they do not
Yeah.
take showers. They don't know what a toothbrush is, right? That whole stereotype, especially in junior high ministry, like that whole stereotype, right? And so, we've like but when we all work together, it makes so much everything easier. So because like like you were saying, like yeah, hey, how can I support you? Thankfully, like our pastor is the same way. He knows, like, hey, if I need something, I go directly to him. Hey, I'm like, hey, listen, I need to buy a bunch of bags. Like, we're gonna buy a bunch of bags, and then we're gonna market them. We're gonna throw our logo on there, and we're
Sounds
gonna
good.
and we're gonna
Like,
like we're gonna do this really weird idea that's like a Cub Scout idea, but don't worry about it. It'll be fine.
all right. Like I'll try. Like yeah, maybe I'm like yeah. I'm like sounds good.
Yeah.
Better than anything I could come up with. Let's go.
Exactly. Or like,
I'll
hey,
pray
listen,
for you.
I need the church because I want to have a so we used to do this thing where we had all the parents of the youth and then the youth come and we had a party. And so like it was like we did that right after COVID, right? And so we would do
Cool.
like, hey, listen, we're gonna go to this person's house. They have a pool, right? So all the kids are gonna jump
Yeah.
in,
Mike
right?
cleaned
So
it. We're
yeah,
good.
there you go. Mike's good, right? Yeah, exactly. So the kids are all in the pool, right? And so what does that do? That leaves all the parents over here and all the kids over here, right? So guess what? The parents that have same kids, same age range, now they can talk,
Hmm.
and then we
Oh,
have
that's perfect.
yeah, and then at the end, we all have food. Everybody brings a little piece because everybody loves sharing. So potlucks are just king,
Mm.
And so we have everybody bring a bag of chips or potato salad or whatever. It doesn't really matter, right? And then
Oh, you
and
brought your
then we
famous chocolate cake. Yes. Everybody's favorite chocolate cake.
Mike.
That's so
Mike,
funny.
Right. Exactly.
deviled
Uh,
eggs.
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And then we end with like, a quick little like devotion Bible study, just a quick thought,
Right.
just a basically a 1 point sermon, if you will. And so, we speak to the parents and the kids at the same time, and man, it creates like bonds like nothing else.
Hmm.
We have people in our church where their families are now united because of events like those. And so
Mm.
like anytime that there's like an opportunity of like, oh hey, maybe we should check out this other thing or whatever, it doesn't work because everybody's so laced together. It's like they're all melted together, which is really a cool thing.
Man, which is
Yeah.
why you're not a babysitter now.
That's
You're a
right.
teammate.
That's right.
And I've been lucky enough to kind of see that investment in kids' lives, and as you've done, you get to develop that relationship with them and you develop the relationship with their parents. But it's just been really fun to watch because, even as parents have been wanting to go to a different church,
Yeah.
they're the kids stay around
Yeah.
and sometimes those parents come back because the kids don't want to leave. They don't get the same relationship and intentionality with under your care than they do at a different church, and so it's like they're ingrained in the church, and that actually sometimes pulls back the parents.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, just adults have more walls just built up naturally. And so like, sometimes if the pastor says something that they just like took out of context, because usually I find that's usually what happens.
Hmm.
They said they cut the senior pastor said something out of context and they're like, well, he doesn't care about politics or whatever, right? So blah blah blah, right? He
Stay
doesn't
tuned
care
to
about
episode 5 or episode
there you
4.
go,
Was it
right?
episode 4? Yeah.
But yeah, he doesn't care about that stuff, right? And so,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna go to this church over here, and then what ends up happening is the kids go there, and they're just, they're the little check mark on the sheet for another church,
Mm.
and especially coming from a place where we try to treat our kids with high value. We really do. We try to keep them, like, hey, you're valuable to us, and we want to invest in you. They go to a church where it's like, hey, listen, we're gonna have pizza. this week. We're gonna have pizza this week, right? And then we're gonna play a game for 20 minutes, and then we're gonna do another icebreaker for another 15, and then we're gonna talk about the message for 10 minutes, and then we're gonna like it's gonna be just boom, 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 and then go over and just and
We
so
had
that like
youth.
yeah, exactly. We have a youth ministry, but the thing is they're not developing relationships whenever
Yeah.
the whole program is front loaded to not have that. It's just like it's too fast,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and it misses out on some of that intentionality. I know with you, I mean, you've done middle school
Yeah.
ministry for some time while I was doing the high school ministry, and then you took on the high school ministry, and now I'm a senior pastor with CC Winnetka. I've been able to watch, like, even as your intentionality in your growing up. One thing that I thought was really interesting in the way that you did ministry, not just as being very pastoral, which a lot of people, I mean, in and of itself, a lot of people don't want to do that work.
Yeah.
They just want to preach, and then that's it.
Mhm.
Like, leave the kids, leave me alone, and so it never really developed. So that pastoral side, just in and of itself, really, really can boom. But even
Mm.
beyond that, something that I've noticed that you do too is you sort of not pushing them in a bad sense, but you sort of encourage these kids to get into ministry themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's part of the thing, we're the body of Christ, and if you're a Christian, you should be involved.
Mm.
And like I was saying earlier, like sometimes you just don't these kids don't have finances, right?
Yeah.
And so one thing that we've been training them to do is I don't want any of our kids leaving that are any of the major pillars that what makes a Christian, and
Mhm.
because I grew up in a place that didn't have this kind of
Mhm.
situation. They didn't really teach us about giving in youth ministry,
Mm.
which they didn't teach us about serving people in youth ministry really. It was like, hey, go to this mission trip and go get tacos in Mexico. But what are you really doing, Like
Mhm.
really, like
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
It's like there's tacos down the street. You
exactly,
haven't even.
exactly, yeah, exactly.
Gosh.
It's like, hey,
Youth retreat.
yeah, exactly. It's be fun, man. Paintball, woo. All right, whatever,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But and so what my whole thing is just developing our students to be successful members of a church.
Mm.
I mean that is my
Mhm.
goal, like our mission verse in our youth ministry is just the Great Commission.
Hmm.
It says
Yeah.
that go therefore and make disciples, right? So like after you've been saved, it's like it's not like just I'm a pastor and that's my only for me, but that's for our whole youth ministry. Like,
Mhm.
that's for all of our kids. It's
Yeah.
just to
Even
go
right now, I love
right
that.
now.
Like
Right
right
now.
now, Great
Right
Commission.
now.
Not until you're 18 when you really get it, when you have
Yeah,
a
and
like better job. Like no, you're a Christian, your mission.
so some of the ways that I've seen you do that is like with evangelism. These kids are actually going out and
Let's go.
sharing the gospel with strangers.
Yeah.
And I mean, where we live, we have a
Street
weekly
fair.
street fair,
Yeah.
and these kids are going out and sharing the gospel with strangers.
Yeah.
And then they're also bringing people to events.
Yep.
They're engaging in ministry. One of the things that I remember as well is at one point in time, you guys had a youth worship band
Yeah.
to play for the youth. So you had your own worship band constructed entirely of the youth playing and worshiping for the youth.
Right.
And now I know it's been some time, but some of those kids, they're actually leading worship at other churches.
That's right.
So
Man.
it's been incredible to kind of watch that. Like, not only are you kind of teaching them, hey, this is the way we worship, this is the way that we learn through our sermons, this is what being a Christian is about.
Yeah.
But you're actually engaging them in such a way of like, hey, you're not just going to be someone in the pews. You're going to grow up to be a pastor. You're going to grow up to be a worship pastor. You're going to grow up to be in an usher, or you're going to grow up to just help and serve in some capacity because, well, people like to think of youth ministry as like, hey, this is just kids, but
Mm-hmm.
this is the future church.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh man, just keep them off drugs. You
Yeah.
know, just make sure they
Yeah.
get good grades.
Make sure
Respect their
they don't listen
parents.
to this, you know? Listen,
No,
yeah.
no.
Well, I mean, it's just like for, our kids, we have them on such a specific track, and we're trying to make sure that we're being faithful with what we're given. Like, in the word it says, like if we're good stewards, God will bless that, and He'll just give us more and more and more. And so, like, if so I take that verse as if I'm a good steward with very few, if I have a good steward with 3 kids, if I'm a good steward with my leaders, if I'm a good steward with what God has given me, He's just gonna bless it. And with these kids, like, when we say, hey, listen, we want you to serve in this capacity, I tell them, like, listen, I want you to dare God, go for
Mm.
it, knock yourself out, like, ask Him to help
Nice.
you. And
Triple
hey,
dog
listen,
dare.
because I promise you, if you go out and clean the church, I promise you, if you go and do ushering, I promise you, if you give out coffee, I promise you, if you do anything for in the Lord's name, God will bless that and multiply what you're needing. If you need more time, God will give you more time.
Mm.
The amount of hours that, and you guys can probably attest to this as well, the amount of time we put into our messages and all the things, it's amazing that God multiplies our time and He pays us back. So, like,
Yeah.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't understand, like, I
Amen.
can still do the things that I want to do, but I can also I can be a very powerful force in ministry, and it's just deceptive. And so it's one of those learned experiences that you have to go through, because if you just say, hey, listen, can you donate half of your Saturday to go out to a park that we don't know anything about, like like and like hand out
Yeah.
hot dogs and
Exactly.
stuff like
Good
that,
luck.
Yep.
would you just trust me with it, like, and I promise you're gonna still have your time. It doesn't make sense unless you do it. And
Yeah.
so for our kids,
Mm.
we're trying to create these students that are just like buff Christians that are just going to be like, man, they know what they're doing. And so eventually, whenever they become of age, they come to one of your guys' churches or anybody's church, and man, these guys are going to be
Yeah.
able to nail it.
Yep.
Dude. Oh, I love it. Oh, I know the devil hates it, but I love it.
Oh, he hates it, Brent. Trust me, he's trying
Mm.
to stop us. So
Yeah.
I believe it.
yeah,
And it's been incredible to watch, kind of to see that happen. And even now, you started out with this lot in high school. You started out with virtually nothing.
yeah,
I mean, you had to kind of reset that, and now you have students that are
hmm
helping lead
yeah.
high school.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so coming back from COVID, so we had done we had to do interesting stuff coming back from COVID. Uh,
That
We're not
was a
yeah,
weird time
we're
for
not
us
it was
all.
a
perfect.
weird time for the church, like, oh, no 6 feet, no singing, no open mouths, and stuff. Couldn't see anybody's
Yeah.
face with a mask on. Like, it was always good, right? Um, yeah, so like during COVID was really rough. So I was in junior high ministry at the time, just kind of leading the group, and so we did all kinds of stuff just to kind of keep engagement up. We did like a video game church. Yeah,
Oh yeah, the
yeah.
Fortnite
So
church.
the
How
famous,
creative.
the infamous.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and
Mm.
so, we basically created a group of kids, and hey, listen, like, hey, can we do all these things? And it was really cool. So junior high during COVID, it was struggling, like, and so we did that, and it boosted everything up, and we were doing well. And the high school person who was in charge, just unfortunately, his heart wasn't in like the youth ministry. He was
Mm,
like torn into like 7 different ministries, and so he just didn't really have it.
yeah.
And so by the time I went to high school ministry, it was kind of like almost like a full reset, because he's coming from a place of like, man, he's got so much on his plate, and he wouldn't be able to like see somebody, like, that kind of thing, be intentional like I was being intentional, I
Yeah.
guess, probably the best way to put it. But
Mm.
so when I came back to our high school ministry, our junior high culture had a pretty good culture running. It was, pretty running pretty smooth and solid. And when I went to high school, I came back with maybe like 2 kids,
Hmm.
Oof.
because the rest during COVID, they all left,
Yeah.
they all left, because they were like, oh, well, I can just, I'm just staring at a screen, because they were trying to do Zoom.
Gosh.
Mistake,
Man, yeah. Well, because you have people that
Yeah.
graduate out too, so it's like you never know. It's like, oh, would have had them, but that's when they rotated out in general. they might not want to come back.
Right.
It's
Yeah, I
just,
think
yeah.
what was so funny too was, in a time, COVID-19, you're not allowed to meet with people. You can't, I mean, you literally can't see one another.
Can't do
Um,
what you want to do.
yeah, you can't talk within 6 feet of each other, even if you see each other in public. It was like in a time in which there was utter isolation, you guys boomed.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, we flew.
the Fortnite church concept, for those that don't know, there's this game, and you can all kind of meet in, and then there's this mode where you can build stuff together, almost like Legos. And you had some youth kids. I mean, talk about, you were being intentional with letting them essentially be in ministry. They were literally building a church in the
Oh
game,
gosh.
and then your character, you would put them like at the stage, and
Yeah.
everyone would be seated in these rows that they built, and you would literally give a devo through a game.
Yeah.
But what was so crazy to watch, just being part of it, was you guys were just growing. You had more interaction than you previously had going into COVID, and you had other people as well.
Yeah, yeah, well, because everybody would invite their friends, you know? They're
Yeah.
like, hey, your friend's online, invite them in, you know? We got 16 spots, go ahead, you know? Like, go
Man.
ahead, knock yourself out, you know? And junior high ministry is typically a smaller ministry, but at that time we were really, like, really booming. We were outpacing high school and young adults and everything because we would just be like, hey, listen, this is just a place, and, especially for our students that were building it, they were just like so happy to have their hands in a ministry, and that's where, like, you can really start to see the fruit of, like, hey, listen, you're serving and you're doing all this stuff. And so we had a couple kids that are just, I mean, they still talk about it to this day, they got tons of
Wow.
stories like
Dude, we're talking about it right now. Let's go.
yeah,
Well,
Like, yeah.
I remember just calling Dave one time to catch up. I was like, Dave,
What's up?
you're not gonna believe what I'm about to tell you, but dude, you gotta hear this concept. And I was telling him about the Fortnite church. You
Oh,
remember that, bro?
yeah, no, I remember it, and then well, is it stealing if Mike just gave it
no,
to me? I mean, okay,
it's not stealing,
No,
no.
man.
because
I wanted the word to get out.
I mean, I ran with that. I was like, brilliant. All of my youth group kids are on it. All of them fight like they all like over Fortnite, like over who has time over. They want to know, hey, what's your gamer tag? Like they're
Yeah.
always like, oh, Pastor Dave, you have Fortnite? Like it was like the thing. Like you have it. Adults don't do cool things, right? So it's like what are
Yeah.
you doing? And so it's like, yeah, I got it. Like Mike, you've even like this wasn't church, but like we played with them. And like
Yeah.
how many edifying conversations we were able to have
Yep.
that I'd like to believe we could, but that maybe we wouldn't have had if we were just in, typical youth room, you know, Sunday morning, Sunday evening, like, hey, how you doing? Oh, it's good. Yeah, hey, I was at your game the other night. You did a really good job. I couldn't run into you because I know you had to go back in. I had to whatever, right? As opposed to like, no, like, man, like he's helping me like win in squads right now, and then I can like vent and I can like vent to him. It's almost like like going to the hairdresser or something, and you're just like, I've never even met you till just now, and I just told you like what I'm doing for the rest of my day to a complete stranger. Only you're not a stranger, and like to the point where
Yeah.
they even like build a building, invite their friends. Hey, like look, it's called creative. Like look what we created, and and like hey guys, this is Pastor Ben. He's our youth pastor. Super cool. Um, welcome to Fortnite Church. Like it's like weird. Like they're like the creator.
Yeah.
Like hey, like welcome, we build it, and you guys come, and then Pastor Ben will give us a cool devo, and then we can fight each other afterward. Like
Exactly.
it's like
Exactly. It's
that's
like pool
awesome.
noodles.
Yeah.
Yes, pool noodles, perfect.
It's the same
Like
thing, yeah.
wow, it was. I
Yeah.
mean, like you were working with what you had. It was
Yeah.
COVID, and like sometimes it's like we make things way more complicated than they need to be. Like it's not just pizza and a game, and
Right.
at the same time, It's like, whoa, like we don't have to make it more complicated than it needs to be. And it's like they just want to be genuinely heard, genuinely
Yeah.
cared about, someplace where they can actually ask tough questions, someplace that they would want to invite their friends to. It's like, hey, this is where I belong. You're looking for a place to belong to. I, I got the spot for you.
Yeah, it's about that like intentionality, that relationship that you're building in a time in which no one could meet anyone,
Hmm.
and not essentially we severed all relationships at that time, which, you know, studies have come out on how detrimental for children that was. I mean, you found a way to build that bridge and still bring the church to them, you know?
Yeah. It was cool. Yeah, I don't know where that came up from. Like it was just
The
like
Holy Spirit.
it
It
was the
was the
Holy
Lord.
Spirit, man.
It
Yeah,
was the Lord. Yeah.
I was just like, man, what can we do? Because there was so many at that point in time when they canceled church. Everyone's like, what are we gonna do? And like Moses, right? It's like, what do you got in your hand? I'm like, all right, well, I got an Xbox remote. Sorry, Mike, not a PlayStation remote, right? Uh,
I
Oh,
forgive you.
it's
you're
okay.
still in Egypt. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
But it was great because I was able to like get that piece and kind of like say, hey, listen,
Mhm.
let's just try it out. Let's just run with it, see what happens.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
if it
and
doesn't
it's
work, it
just
doesn't work. But
and it's
like,
just
I'm not gonna
going
try.
out to them. You know,
Yeah.
like I know you're that like whole. I think there's sort of a trinity there of like being pastoral in genuine relationship, and being sincere, and then just yeah, just like that, not being fake, and being real with them and being intentional with them. But like you carry that out. I mean, now there is no Fortnite church because it's sort of had its
Yeah.
season. We're out of COVID now. But I mean, I've seen you go out and like you're out at their football games.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to their quinceañeras, which is tremendous, because you're being invited to the quinceañeras.
Yeah.
Like most people, like I've said this before, but I just feel like I can't stress it enough. Most people for youth ministry, it ends once they're done with the sermon.
Right.
And what I've seen with you is like for you, it almost seems like once that sermon's done, that's when ministry starts.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, we have to be there. I mean, showing up is a big deal. So often, we don't know what these kids are going through, and the family dynamics is sometimes really strange. And so when we're there, it shows them that we care and respect for them. Like we want to support them. Like I mean, I got a text before I came in. I'm going to a cheerleading thing on Friday night. Like I don't want to go to a cheerleading thing on Friday night, but guess what? We're going.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I got invited to a Christmas party. I don't want to go, but guess what? We're going, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, just the presence there and just the immediacy there. And just say, hey, listen, I care about what you're doing. Show me your performance. Let me go to this musical play where I hate musicals, okay? Like, you know?
What? I
And
hate
so
them too.
like, so some of those things we have to really fight for. And with our kids, we have to really understand, like, hey, listen, man, this is so important because so often is with like Mike you were saying like the screens, with the screens what they've done is created a full disconnect of people,
Hmm.
and these kids have now learned like who's really valuing them now,
Hmm.
because
Mm.
like, hey, are you actually showing up, like
Yeah.
are you just gonna talk about it or are you gonna be about it, like.
Ooh,
Wow.
be
Yeah.
real.
That's, I mean, and it really shows too, because I mean, we talked a little bit about you had to essentially hard reset,
Yeah.
almost coming out of COVID, and you coming out of COVID and entering into high school ministry, because that's where you're at now. You're doing high school ministry, and
Yeah.
you're the youth pastor over all youth ministry now. Um, you went from like 4 kids, and now you guys are at like 3 services, and how many kids?
40, 40, 50.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh,
it's
and that's high school. It's like,
yeah,
wow.
it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, you've really had that boom, and Dave, I think, you sort of had a not the opposite experience. You didn't lose a bunch of kids, but
Yeah.
you sort of have a different side of the coin in which where Ben, he's being faithful and the Holy Spirit's blessing him, and there's a lot of kids coming in. We're over here in Los Angeles, essentially,
Yeah.
Los Angeles County,
Essentially.
um, and
Essentially.
and we have the opportunity to have people come in through our doors. But when you were over at RTS and you were in a much smaller town and stuff, you didn't really have that luxury. But what I got to see when I went out towards you is you still had that same intentionality, that same pastoral heart, is it, but where it wasn't really growing in the quantitative sense, you were pouring into these kids in the discipleship role in a qualitative sense. I mean, do you want
Right.
to speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, it was amazing. Well, I think, and Ben, I think you'll agree with me. Like, I'm not just trying to like say it, but like we actually love these kids.
Yeah.
Like we like, and honestly, like when people are just like, oh, you're a youth, like a youth pastor is a pastor, which means you pour over those children in your sermon. You're pouring over them in prayer. They're on your heart. They are almost like a mini flock within the flock of that local congregation. And you're right. Where I happened to be situated, where the church was, if the southeast is the Bible Belt, Charlotte was certainly the buckle, because that goodness, there was a church like every quarter mile. Some church, you might not agree with denomination, but there was a church, and so a lot of folks were just naturally spread out. What happens when you have 50 churches in one small town? That
Hmm.
really, it's a town big enough where you could have one church and it's still like 150 members. uh, so you're just trying to be faithful. You're trying to pour into the kids that are there, not so much worrying about the kids that aren't. You always still have that same mission, that same vision, that same focus, that same intention. I'm going to pour into these children, and I want them to have a wonderful relationship with their Lord and Savior. I want them to allow that to shape how they live and treat one another. And I want them to take that out and then be witnesses in their schools, in their communities, on their sports teams, whatever their extracurricular is. Um, and so that's still the focus. Uh, it didn't take off the same way necessarily, but I thankfully had a wonderful church elders and senior pastor behind me. That's like, hey, he's doing something, and with the 6 to 10 kids he has on a Sunday, he's reaching more kids than we are. So, you know, it's like don't look
Yeah.
at the number, look at their hearts, look at the quality of people that they're becoming in Christ because they're getting solid biblical teaching, and gospel overflow out of that teaching into how I treated them, wanted to know them, spent time with them
Yeah.
when
Mhm.
maybe not everyone was. And to the point where, yeah, I might be doing one of the gentlemen's weddings pretty soon. He has to actually propose first. She's got to say yes. I don't
Small
want to be
detail.
presumptuous. Yeah,
that was
small
that
detail.
was one of your
Uh,
kids, right?
yeah, and he's visited. Like we hung out so much while we were down there. I take him to football games. They'd invite us over to use their pool whenever we wanted. They even came up and visited me and Amber in Maryland now. Got to hold the triplets.
Oh wow.
It's just like they drove seven
That's a trip
hours.
too.
That's
Yeah.
It
crazy.
is a trip. And we went to because the
Yeah.
Ravens were playing the Panthers, and so they braved very cold northeast weather in the end of November because we're buddies, we're friends, and so the Lord was able to use me, thankfully,
Hmm.
uh, to be real, have real conversations, uh, not too real where they're unhealthy or ungodly for the sake of being real. But they knew when they got Dave, they got Dave. It
Yeah.
wasn't some caricature, not some facade. But hey, Dave's really cool. He's a fun guy to be around, and he actually believes what he says. He actually does in his own life what he wants me to do in my life. He doesn't tell me to go to church and have fun when he doesn't go to church and have fun. It's like, no, I
Right.
do. It's fun. We even had our own youth section. Older church that happened to actually have a balcony, but a small, it had a balcony even though it didn't
Oh
need
yeah.
one. It's like, and that was the youth section, right? Like our senior pastor, like Mike, you were even there. Hey, everyone, don't be fooled in thinking, where did all of our kids go? Because they're all upstairs right now, hanging out and listening together. Don't worry. Like, where did the youth go? They're just in their section. They have their own section, and that was just so fun to do. And yeah, those kids are great. We still talk. We're
Yeah,
friends.
I think that just really testifies to this. When you are intentional about building those genuine relationships with these kids, you're not just building, you know, you're not just you're not just pouring into a kid. You're pouring into someone who's going to be the church. You're pouring into someone who is essentially going to be a lifelong relationship. I still remember my youth pastor, Mike Rocher from CC Pass. I, he was a role model to me for like a lot of my life, and he was someone who I tried to fashion myself to be like, you know, and we can't understate how important those relationships are to the kids, but even to who they become. Because I'm sure now you're friends with him. You're not
Oh yeah.
just his youth pastor, but like these genuine relationships flourish and blossom. And so we can see that, if the Lord blesses you, if you're blessed in such a way to grow your youth ministry quantitatively and grow in numbers, or there's nothing wrong, and it's also what the Lord calls you to do. First and foremost, you got to be pouring into these kids,
Hmm.
and so for you, Dave, you were pouring into these kids, you were discipling them, and you were being faithful in the Lord, and that's just the way that the
Mhm.
Lord had you. I'm only saying this because, like when I was applying to certain like youth ministry positions, one of the things that I always saw and immediately just knew I'm not applying there was like, we want a youth pastor, we're gonna pay him X amount of money, we want to see ministry growth
Yeah,
within a
grow
year.
the program.
And I
Yeah.
was like, listen, if the Lord doesn't want to give you those numbers, there's nothing I can do that will grow those numbers. My job is to pour into these kids responsibly, be intentional, and be the pastor for them so that they can grow up to be responsible, mature Christians that are solid in the faith. And I mean, that's what you were doing, and Ben,
Mhm.
that's what you're doing. And, the Lord's been faithful to bless both of you guys in the ways that He has.
Yeah. I'm thankful my job description said minister to the youth we have. I was like,
Hey,
cool,
man.
I can do that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the current church that I'm at too. It's like, hey, just whatever's here, just do what you can, you know. The
yeah,
church that I came from back in the day, not so much.
yeah,
They would,
yes.
oh, hey, listen, like you had a drop in numbers, you last week you had 40 and this week you have, 20. What happened? Well, there's a thing
Summer
called
vacation.
Christmas.
Yeah,
Like
Christmas,
Christmas, like
exactly.
I don't know what you mean. Like, well, that's still not good enough, right? Like
Yeah. Some of
horrible.
them go away for nope. What
No,
did you do?
no, you did something.
It gotta be you. Do we
Did
need
you
more
Yeah.
mention hell?
pizza? Bad game?
I have a friend too who was a youth pastor that had, I mean, he had a senior pastor that was like that, and
Yeah.
apparently they had stats every week of who showed up, and he was being berated by this church and by this pastor,
Like,
because it was a
what?
board too, of like, you had 17 last week and you have 14 this week. What did you do wrong?
Yeah.
And it's
Oh,
crazy to
that is
hear, but
funny.
there are churches that are like that because they're so
Uh,
number focused,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, man, Jesus had 12 and one fell away. Like we got to be quality focused here,
yeah.
And so it's sad to hear, but I'm glad that we're situated in places that we're in where we can actually focus on the call that we're at.
Amen.
Now
Yeah.
that being said, usually we end this podcast in a resources thing, But I think instead of that today, with essentially the entire podcast being about youth ministry, I got to ask you, for the future of youth ministry and for the future of kids, you know, what is the biggest challenge that we're facing
Mm.
here for youth ministry and these kids?
Well, like we were talking about with COVID and all these different things, I think what's happening is there's become an amazing identity crisis among these kids, where they're questioning just, I mean, who they are and what sexuality they are, and are they ABC plus, ABC through Z, whatever you want to call it, right? Like,
Yeah, the
yeah,
LGBTQ.
there
Letter
you
Yeah.
go,
people.
like what am I, and like who am I, and when we get to a thing you're trying to like, they're exploring who they are and trying to figure these things out, and these kids on social media, it's just like it's an echo chamber, because these
Mm,
platforms are just very algorithmic
Mm,
based, so if you watch a certain thing, it's just going to say, oh, you like that, let me show you more, and so there's not a diversity of ideas, and so what's happening is they're hearing the same ideas over and over again. Since they're not feeling a certain way, they're just like, oh, well, who am I? Am I really this person? And what is my worth? Like, is my
mm,
worth like being, like a one night stand? Is my worth like
mm,
being worth a car? Or is my worth, just being talked to?
yeah, am
Um,
I worth
y-
anything?
yeah, am
Yeah,
I
I mean,
worth anything? Like, and who
gosh.
am I and what do I stand on? And so, in our culture, there's been so much, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, who am I? And there's been over the years, there's been so much misconception about what church really is. In reality, is there's been so much talk about what the church is and who Jesus is and who Jesus isn't, and what to expect coming to a church. Should I expect this or that, and so all these different
Mm,
problems, and so what I just kind of saying all that to say this is like our kids are facing a major identity crisis because they
mm,
don't have a solid truth they can bounce off of. And
mm,
as the Christian community, if we don't stand for what the Word of God says is, like as far as the solid ground truth, everything I say is a matter of opinion, but what the Word of God says is a matter of fact.
mm,
You know,
yep.
and and so as Christians, we can kind of buckle down and get scared of getting canceled or getting, pulled off whatever, like, hey, listen, you're gonna lose my number, right? Okay, whatever, right? All these things, and our kids are just stuck in this moment of they can't really find a truth path anywhere, and people are too
Mm,
scared to say anything. And so
mm,
boo.
you know and I think for us, if we just kind of come with a genuine attitude of, hey, listen, I love you and I care for you, I'm invested in you, let's just talk, let's have a chat, like, what do you think? Do you think this? Do you think that? And I think that with what I've experienced and what I'm seeing just in our current generation, if the church were to stand up and say, "Hey, listen, like, this is who you are. This is what the Word of God says that you are. You have a
Mm,
purpose. You've been created specifically for this moment. You are definitely a boy or you're definitely a girl because God's created you special for that.
yeah.
You
right.
know, um, you've been created in very specific special ways, and so like you can't take that away. And if somebody tries to tell you that, they're trying to steal your unique purpose.
Mm,
Mm.
And it's kind of lame, it's a rip off of the truth. and
Purpose.
and so for us, like, that's the biggest problem is in one way it's breaking the stereotype, but in more of the bigger sense is for us to speak life into them, speak purpose into them, and say,
Mm.
hey, listen, God has a plan for your life. Like, I know everything hasn't been
Wow.
perfect, but just if you hang on, you're gonna see it. And it's gonna be awesome.
Just bear
It's
with
gonna be
me.
awesome.
It's worth
But
it.
it's
Yeah.
worth it. Just trust me, because with or without God, you're still gonna have the same problems. So like
Mm.
the problems aren't going away, and in fact, they're going to be amplified without him. So,
mm,
So
but
true.
but but if we're too scared to say Jesus is the only way, and because we're going to say everybody's going to say it's narrow, it's a narrow path. Yeah, you're right, dude. It is narrow, right?
yeah.
It it,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, definitely. I get it.
One
Yeah,
way.
not all roads
One.
lead to God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And so for me specifically, I just find like, hey, listen, like right now is our time to be bold,
Hmm.
and time to be bold and pour into these kids. When we pour into them, you know, just praise God. But we don't really lose a lot of kids in our ministry. They don't go away. And a lot of the times when they're moving up and moving around, even within the ministry themselves, they're serving the church, they're serving their families. They're doing things that
Wow.
are making the enemy angry.
Perfect. I love it.
Yeah.
He does things that make me angry. Why can't
Yeah,
we return the favor?
exactly.
You know?
Sharing is caring.
No. And I just have like one thing that what you said brought to mind because I had a pastor, and this was at Moody, teaching us about the importance of youth ministry. Because that's another, oh, youth ministry, glorified
Yeah.
daycare. It's like, no, stop. Like, this is a ministry. I need a youth pastor. I need a man of God that knows his word like the back of his hand and will love those kids the right way and pour into them and be an example for them. Because I know as a senior pastor now, it's like if you care at all about the church that you will be pastoring in 10 years, you should care about youth ministry
Yeah.
Yeah.
because Lord willing, that's who's going to be in your congregation because they haven't left or aren't gone. So it's like, if you care about who you're going to be pastoring in 10 years, care about youth ministry.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're gonna have quite the crowd of people coming in through those doors with questions that you would never thought you would
Yeah.
be asking.
And yeah, and what if they had them answered when they were in eighth grade, 10th
Exactly.
grade already?
But
Because, like,
now they're
not,
walking in
yeah.
with these questions and all the baggage
Oh, great.
of
I know.
of what they've gone through. I mean, I know what was really startling to me with like Jordan Peterson, what he brought to light with his, as he just brings to light all this literature and facts regarding psychology, is one of the things that I found most remarkable is, you know, girls going through puberty and boys as well going through puberty, that's when they struggle the most with body dysmorphia, right? I mean, that's you're most uncomfortable in your body during puberty. And for girls, that's a really young age. For boys, that's a little bit older. But either way, we all kind of go through that process. And where you and I and Ben, we got to go through that process and we didn't have the screens.
Mm-mm.
We didn't have TikTok and the algorithm showing us that L plus stuff. That, maybe you're asexual, maybe you're polyamorous, maybe you're bisexual, maybe you're gay, maybe you're a female and all that other stuff. They're being impressed on all of that stuff. And in as you were just saying, we need all the more to be bold and push in and give them these answers to give them that foundation. And also, we gotta equip those parents because they're gonna be the first line of defense and maybe even the only line of
Mm-hmm.
defense.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if we don't equip the parents, it's kind of like, it's like again, kind of going back to Deuteronomy 6, we're a team, we got to work
Mm,
together. So if the parent sees something weird as ministers, we have to say, "Hey, listen, I see a problem. Hey,
Mm,
I just want to talk to you real quick, and I think sometimes there's like embarrassment over things that there's no reason to be embarrassed over. Like, like if you're struggling with something, just say it like, hey, listen, I'm having a problem, because none of us are perfect, we all have problems, and the main thing for us is like, hey, listen, if you need help, speak up. And I think if more people just were honest with each other rather than trying to, put on the facade, like we could,
mm.
I mean, honestly, I think our churches would just be in so much of a better state,
mm,
you know?
Gosh, don't lie to your doctor.
Yes,
Don't lie
exactly.
to your doctor about how you're feeling. Okay,
Right.
I'm trying to be a spiritual physician.
yeah, well, I think we'll go ahead and end on that note. And just, folks, I hope you really enjoyed this episode. Youth ministry, we can't say it enough, is so important. We are investing in the future church
Mhm.
and future leaders. And if this has helped you, that's fantastic. If you know someone who's in youth ministry, or as a youth pastor, you can go ahead and share this episode with them. Or if you're getting into it, just keep these in mind. You got to be genuine. You got to be sincere. You got to be intentional. You can't fake a relationship. And so we just hope that all of this has been helpful. All of this is for the kingdom. That's what we're trying to do and build here. And we brought on Ben here, who has been phenomenal for the kingdom. We thought he'd be awesome to kind of pick his brain on the wisdom that he's gleaned for these 20 years. Now, if you'd like to know more about him, I did steal this idea from Jordan Peterson's podcast, but he sort of talks about a subject, and then he'll have like a different segment with the Daily Wire where he'll go into the person's life and how they got to where they're at. And we're going to go ahead and do that now with Ben. And so we'll have a special episode on top of this one on how he got here and some of that wisdom. So if you'd like to see that, go ahead and watch that. But in any rate, don't forget to like. It really helps. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to comment. Any of that good stuff.
The
We
algorithm.
love to watch it. We love to watch the comments and see what you guys are saying. And yeah, we just love to interact with you. So with all that being said, we're going to catch you guys in the next one. See ya.